Good evening, and welcome to U Talk, where it's time to let that maxim of Cassius apply. Um, Qui bono? That's the bitch. So,
Wait,
we've
Cassius?
discussed Cassius.
Was that the name of the judge
Yeah,
in ancient Rome? Okay, I didn't know that. Anyway,
Lucius
continue.
Cassius. And yeah, what we ask here is, so far we've determined that whatever happens, the media is going to have a field day. The Australian people are going to be moderately inconvenienced and probably not even get a democracy sausage out of the deal. And it's hard to determine under these circumstances what's going to happen. Who wins? Who loses? Who calls the draw? And where are the people left after this? Kyle, can you please tell me who is risking it for the biscuit?
All right, so ironically, even though they're not the ones who really seem to want this, it's Labour. Labour are just trying to get a decent housing bill to provide housing for Australia's poorest through Parliament. And essentially they're being probably forced into an election that they probably would end up winning from what I can tell, but they might take a hit. It might even go into like minority government territory. It'll be like on a knife's edge whether it's minority government or majority government. It'd be that sort of stuff.
Okay, so I know that I started this referring to Whitlam as sort of the prototype for what happens with a double dissolution. I'd
Actually,
just
on
like
that,
to
if
quickly.
I would really like to say something about that. And this is going to sound like a conspiracy theory at first, but we do have very solid
I,
information,
no, no, no,
including
no, no,
a
no, 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 not that
oh
one.
come
I'm
on
talking about the previous one.
previous one.
Yeah, as I told you, there were two double dissolutions involving
Oh
Gough
right,
Whitlam.
yeah. Okay,
So
look, yeah.
I'd like to talk to you about what triggered the first one. And that was,
19,
this has been
1974.
described. Yep, this has been described as the government's attempts to effect an additional Senate vacancy was constitutionally sound, strategically brilliant, and an unmitigated political disaster. Those three things shouldn't really go together, but welcome to Australian politics, where the rules are made up and the money is the only thing you follow. Gough Whitlam offered the post of ambassador to Ireland to a senator from Queensland, Vince Gare, because he believed that that Senate vacancy, shoe in for Labour. He might have even been right. Um, Ultimately,
I
the
thought Joe
fact that
B.O.P.
he
Peterson
offered this.
was Premier of Queensland back then, and didn't the
No, senator from Queensland. But you're right about the
hmm,
Premier of Queensland. Premier
no,
Bjelke
but
Peterson.
what I was
Premier
going to
Bjelke
say.
Peterson was part of the reason that this didn't fly.
Well, that's what I was going to say is essentially because he was Nationals and probably the most corrupt premier in Australian history, aside from maybe Gladys Berejiklian. Um,
Eh,
Seriously, the level of corruption that it's mountains. But anyway, beyond that, I was going to say because it's the premier, it's either the premier or the state parliament that chooses that appoints a new senator, correct?
um,
Or that did appoint at that
Technically,
time.
it's
I
the
think they
people
changed it.
that do that. Technically, it's the people that appoint a new senator. But if you'll let me finish the summary,
Okay.
um, Vince Gare was previously a Labour senator. He left the Australian Labour Party to, I think, join the Democratic Labour Party. Yeah, the breakaway
GLP.
Queensland Labour Party, which then merged with the Democratic Labour Party, who we've discussed before in the context of Bob Santamaria and the communist scare. Um, it was sort of, this position was offered to him, um, technically outside of the party, outside of the Australian Labour Party, because it was suspected that that additional Senate seat would grant the Labour Party a Senate majority. And accusations, counter-accusations, murmurs, news, publicity, bad press, good press. And at the end of this, Whitlam has just said, you know what? Hell with you all. And has decided to hit trigger bills for a double dissolution. You will recall that from 74 to 75, Whitlam's political control was shakier. And this is why I sort of am going back to this time period, because we've seen an example here of a double dissolution being called by the government in power in an attempt to shore up a weak political situation that has instead created more of a problem.
And you're thinking that's what could happen for Albo and the Labour Party in government right now.
Yes, you mentioned
I'm
the
inclined to
possibility
agree.
of a coalition minority government. And
I wouldn't say coalition minority, I'd just say minority. Labour have made it quite clear since the days of Bob Brown and Julia Gillard didn't go so well, that effectively the Greens are poison to Labour, and they would rather opposition for any length of time than to form a coalition with the Greens.
that sounds like the words of someone who has experienced being held by the short and curlies.
That's Labour. And it's happening again right now. And Labour's in a tough position. I don't envy.
So, to quote the epic rap battles of history, guys, who wins? Who lost?
You decide. Epic rap battles of history.
I still appreciate Sigmund Freud versus Mother Teresa, because they were both truly terrible people.
Was Sigmund
Match
Freud
made in
I know
heaven.
Mother Teresa. I've heard about her, shall we say, misdeeds. But Sigmund Freud, I thought he was just a scientist who discovered some things. And I mean, I know a lot of his stuff is
he
outdated.
certainly did a lot of self-discovery, shall we say.
Do I want to know about this?
You don't want to be talking about this live on camera. No, I've already sworn enough times.
I'll figure out whether or not to talk about this later. But that being said, we've got 4.5 minutes left. What else do we really want to know? I mean, my prediction, if a double dissolution election goes ahead, would be Labour winning between 70, maybe 75 and 77 seats inclusive. Like, it'll be probably very much a knife's edge. I mean, they're still riding high from the election. They're still, from the previous election, they're still in good
standing,
I guess.
And also, there is evidence to
standing.
suggest that of the policies that they took to the election, and there were just about 40 of them, a little over, that they're basically on target. They've already got 8 of them done and in the clear, another 17 that are very much in the works. Like, they can point to that and say, we are in the process of delivering on our election promises, and if not for these jumped up corporals, we would be there.
Can we stop with the even subtle Hitler references? It's just low-hanging fruit. Come on, jumped up corporal. You've said that before. We both know that was a Hitler.
Nonetheless, there is the very real possibility of taking the reputation of having gotten things done to the polls. Having said, look, we have only had a few months, and we are still smashing it. We are doing what we said we would do.
It's been a year and 3 months, hasn't it? Wait, it was in May that so it's been 14 months.
Yeah,
although
that's a few months.
For 14 months.
That's sort of what I'm saying.
Okay, here's what I will say. I suspect that the Greens will run their line of Labour just wasn't doing enough. We couldn't support a bad bill. Again, complete bullshit, but the ABC will run with that. Labour will get attacked there, and I don't think it all comes down to whether or not Labour can muster a fighting spirit. Now, I think that Labour, when it comes to picking fights, is rather spineless. Labour does not politically fight. They will not pick fights on the grounds of policy. They cower before the media. So
I would
think
really
that
love to see Bill Shorten taking this one instead of Albo. Bill Shorten was a Labour leader who was not afraid to pick fights, and it didn't do him any favours, but at the same time, I'd love to see that.
While I agree, I think that Bill Shorten
might be part of the reason that Labour is now more risk averse in picking fights.
Well, it's not that. Okay, Bill Shorten is not afraid to pick a fight, but he doesn't know how to fight. He thinks that he has to fight. He thinks that he has to fight through the mainstream media. The problem, what Labour, well, the best thing that Labour could do is to build their own media machine and post videos online, just basically demonstrating their policies and the good of their policies. Now, the problem is that can also be attacked because taking the Anti-Corruption Commission at the federal level, they basically, even people who generally like Labour as a government, like Michael West, call that the secret National Anti-Corruption Commission because it requires exceptional circumstances for public hearings, and it's very vaguely defined what those exceptional circumstances would be. So there are legitimate reasons to attack Labour, and there are also a lot of illegitimate reasons that they will get attacked on. And I don't think that they're able to pick the fights that are necessary. I think they'll be on defense the whole time and they'll lose. I think they'll end up in a minority government, 75, maybe even 74 seats. That being said, we're about to run over time. Is there anything you'd like to say before we go?
I have this mental image of Tom Cruise storming a Parliament House in Canberra. I need to get a copy of the minority government.
All right. Well, I guess with that, we'll leave it and keep the third video this week's time. So thank you for watching, and we'll catch up.
Take care, everyone.